Welcome to Closer to Venus. Today's guest is Laura Van Tyne. She is a psychic, healer, past life regressionist, and remote viewer. She works with the angelic realms to help souls cross over and find the light, and she also helps her clients remove dark entities. In this episode, we'll talk about her work with the angelic realms, as well as the friendly and not so friendly types of ETs. Laura, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This should be a good one. Okay. First of all, how did you find yourself on this path?
It was never intended, or so I thought. I was a middle school math and Spanish teacher. My husband's a business guy, and we have 3 children. And one day, without any dabbling, without anything, the paranormal hell started rolling through our house. And they were after me, and they were after one of my daughters. There was too many experiences to realize that this has to be true. This has to be accurate. And so ultimately I stopped teaching because I had to figure this out. I had to figure out how to save my family's souls. We would have things literally fly off the countertops in the kitchen. We would be scratched, bitten at night. I would get choked right here so hard. I've passed out before, but yet nobody's home. So this was the stuff. These were the elements. We had a ton of ghosts in our home. They weren't just ghosts either. And I had to learn how to figure out the difference between a ghost energy and between a dark entity. And meanwhile, the angelic realms are also trying to assist. So that's the short answer to a complicated question.
When you bring up ghost energies and dark entities, I feel that we're going into more of like a non-human type of entity. What was the next step then? Because obviously you felt threatened.
Absolutely. I was looking at different churches. I was looking for spiritual practitioners, psychics. I was trying to unturn every stone possible to figure out how to solve my family's problem. This was 20 years ago, and the internet wasn't what it is. These disclosure movements, or whatever you want to call them, weren't what they are now. My kids are in a very conservative school district. I'm a school teacher in that school district, and I had to be careful. I couldn't run around saying, hey, my kid's really good at soccer. Do you know of a good personal soccer coach? Hey, my kid sees weird stuff. Do you know of a psychic? It doesn't translate well. So that's what I was trying to figure out. And it took me a while to do it. I now know that was my training ground to do what I do today. As angry as I was with God, that was my training ground. And I can look back at those times and say, I get it now. I didn't get it back then.
Okay. When you say you get it, is that a reference to good against evil and how we need to have the dark and the light at the same time, or is that something completely different?
This is about the spiritual war that we all face, and it's been going on for many millennia, the light, the dark. A ghost is a former human. So we are, as we know, spiritual beings having human experiences. So while I'm in this body, the energy that animates my body is my soul energy. When I die and I leave this body, the soul energy that animated this body has to go somewhere. When it crosses over into heaven to the higher realms, that means that I've made that trek back home. When we're stuck as a ghost energy is literally a soul, a former human, that is trapped between heaven and earth. Those souls need help to go home. They are not supposed to be here. The dark side has put these thoughts in our head. They were a bad person. They deserved a rotten hell. Or they have unfinished business. They are not supposed to cross over. The truth is their karmic time here is done, and they need to go home for soul healing, soul restoration.
When you describe these entities as ghost energies, isn't that the same thing as an earthbound ghost, or is it something different? It is an earthbound ghost.
It is, yeah. An earthbound ghost, yeah.
It's not uncommon to hear about mediums helping souls go over to the other side. And I think there is a consensus that they're not supposed to be lingering. Their karmic time here is done. They need to go back home before they come back around the next time, whenever that is. What's the difference between removing ghost energies and removing dark entities?
Ghost energies, to me, are much easier to deal with. There's a myriad of dark entities out there. These dark entities, and when I go out and talk about this, I'm going to use bucket terms, right? The Luciferic forces, those that left the light of God source energy, creator energy, when they left the light of God, they left behind an energy source to sustain themselves. So now they are struggling to find an energy source, and they have found us humans, and in other planets too. We are light beings of God, and because of that, they feel they have the right to tap into us, to extract our energies, to sustain themselves. The same is true with ghost energies. These dark ones can take a ghost energy and siphon off the energy. It's a very dangerous place to be. So when I remove dark entities, I have a process that I use. And anybody that says that they bind, bury, or cast away the demons, the demonic forces, the dark ones, those are the wrong terminologies. We want to hand them back to God's source energy and let them deal with it. If I bind, bury, or cast away something, what's to stop it from coming back?
Question about the Luciferian energy. That conjures images of Draco reptilians, right? Greys. I think it's interesting how you describe that. They left behind a sustaining source when they left God's light. How did you discover that they actually left their source behind?
Back in the early days, I learned a valuable lesson. I'm exhausted. I don't sleep because I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to protect my family. And Jesus showed up in my living room. And Jesus started telling me that I am not worthy of God. I'm not this. I'm like, whoa, what is this? And I looked at Jesus in a different light, in a different angle, and I saw Jesus pixelate. That Jesus was a shapeshifter. That was my first big aha lesson. So when fake Jesus showed up, all of a sudden, my spiritual team showed me how to capture him. And when I was able to capture him, I put him in a containment field, and I started quizzing him. I have the ability to capture them, and then I hand them off to the light side. It's above my pay grade to say where you go. I started quizzing them over and over, the ones that were coming after me, coming after eventually clients, etc. And I created a notebook. I was looking for patterns. I was looking for elements to try to make sense of the non-tangible world. Eventually, as I'm quizzing them, I'm assuming they're telling me lies. Sometimes they're telling me truth. And I started finding the patterns. And this is 20 years in the making of this, by the way. This is not an overnight thing. They all had a common theme, that they had to sustain their energy for their bosses. There's a political hierarchy. We think when we die and leave these bodies that we leave behind politics. Guess what? No, we don't.
Jesus.
I know, right?
I'm afraid to even go into that territory, but since you brought it up.
What I mean by this is that the dark forces have a political hierarchy. All right, there are 7 different levels of gray aliens, for example. It's a political hierarchy. The angelic realms have a political hierarchy. We have the cherubic realm, we have the archangels. There's politics there. But when I'm working with and capturing the dark ones, I'm quizzing them and I'm putting them in categories. The Hat Man. The Hat Man is a being that stands in the corner and watches. The Hat Man, his job is to watch and see what happens and report to his bosses what is going on in the house, so the dark side can try to gain more control over what is going on in the house, in the office, or wherever it is. I don't want to make people paranoid, but this is the unseen energetic realm that impacts us all the time. Ultimately, they do not have a right to mitigate our free will, but they don't care. So this is how I started finding out what is going on, how it works. When I work with clients, I have a process that I use so that they can remote view and see what's happening too. And now we have 2 data points, because when you're dealing with the unseen world, how do you know what's true? How do you know you're making it up? All the things, right?
So that brings up a lot of interesting points about the political hierarchy and so forth. So that naturally spills over into the area of, okay, so who is the deep state? Who really is? It's not Democrats or Republicans.
Honestly, it's mostly the reptilians.
That's what I keep hearing.
Yeah, I was at a conference and there was a channeler speaking, and he says, "Oh, I'm going to channel the reptilians." I'm like, "Oh God, that's such not a good idea with this audience." And this guy, he shifts into a reptilian. You can see it, the scales on his hands. It was crazy, and I'm like, "Oh dear God." And I'm working on protecting the room, frankly. And this reptilian starts talking about how they started World War I and II so they can save humanity. And I'm like, oh, I got questions.
So they can save humanity. So obviously that's not truthful, is it?
No, it's not.
I didn't think it was.
No. And we have to be careful. Psychic mediums have to be careful what they do because it has a huge impact on other people. There's a huge responsibility for what I do.
I agree. So how did you learn to remove the entities from your clients? Do you work with the angelic realms? Do they help you remove the entities and send them wherever they need to go? Or how does that work?
For the most part, there's a process I use because I want the client to be included in the process because I can tell you anything. I get just enough information to string you along. How do you know what we're doing is working or not? Even if you can't, quote unquote, see anything, there's many ways to see, to sense, to feel, and I help the client open up that aspect of themselves during the time of the session, and then we close it back up because we don't want to have a bright light without any protection around it, right? So we work together. I use a particular landscape, I'm going to call it, that puts us in neutral territory to find the problem. And so I'm asking the client questions. What do you see or what do you sense? What's over here? What's over there? And I'm seeing it too or not. If I'm seeing it, it's validation. If I'm not seeing something and you're seeing it, don't assume I'm right and you're wrong. We're going to work through that problem together. So we work on this. This is really helpful when it comes to blockages that we have in life. I keep running up against money issues. I keep running up against relationship issues. What's happening? And a lot of times we're being puppeted by these unseen forces. I don't want to make people paranoid, but we need to strengthen ourselves, period. And while we do this, I'm bringing in the angelic realms. Sometimes I bring in the dragon realms also. It just depends on the situation.
Dragons?
Sometimes, yeah. Not reptilians. The dragon realms are earthbound creatures that help with the Earth's magnetic grid. And again, before I bring in any angels, before I do anything, I'm testing and vetting them. I don't want a false angel. I don't want a fake angel. I don't want an imposter. So I'm always vetting. And I teach my clients how to vet. One of the easiest ways to vet what's happening is you're going to visualize yourself. Let's just say I've got this pen, pretend it's an angel. I'm going to visualize myself pouring salt over this angel right here. And if it stays the same, it's the real deal. If it shapeshifts or disappears, I've dodged a bullet. It's not that.
Any specific type of salt?
Just visualizing yourself pouring salt over it. Salt cleanses in all dimensions. We used to use it to preserve our meat. We used to use it to treat wounds. It cleanses in all dimensions. That's just one technique that we can use to vet our guides. I vet my guides, my angels, all the beings, all the light beings. And this is where people don't understand, and it's what gets them in trouble. They just assume Archangel Michael is there for them. What if Archangel Michael is actually an imposter? How do you know the difference?
What if he's busy? He's busy helping someone else.
All the things. And so just vet them by pouring salt on them.
Very good advice. I like that because the imposter syndrome, if you want to call it that, pretty much is evident across the spectrum. Angelic realms, figures like Jesus and Mary Magdalene and saints and so forth. So you had an experience with a false Jesus. Have you ever had an experience with the real thing?
Yes, all the time.
Really?
All the time.
Visuals included or not necessarily?
Visuals included, messages being sent to me, absolutely. Yeah.
It's important for people, especially the ones that are not religious, to know that Christ he's real. He's not a mythical figure. And he's here for everyone, right?
He did not walk this earth to absolve us of all of our sins for in perpetuity. That's just ridiculous.
You said it, not me.
He did not come here to absolve us of all of our sins for the lifetime of this planet, for every single human. And by the way, I don't resonate with the word sin because it evokes guilt, shame, and blame. I resonate with experiences. We can look at experiences as positive, negative, and neutral. If I'm a sinner, I'm born in sin, I'm going to die in sin. Well, that creates ghost energy right there. I'm not worthy of going home to the heavens, to the higher realm. Christ came here to tell us that we have the power within ourselves.
Isn't it true, though? According to the Nag Hammadi texts, there is a version of Christ that is described as saying, "Don't worship me, become me," which is very consistent with what you just said.
He came here to mitigate the karma caused by the Lucifer rebellion.
The Lucifer rebellion.
The Luciferic forces who descended upon this earth to siphon off our energies.
Isn't that the same thing as the Draco Reptilians and the Greys and whoever else that fits in that category?
Absolutely it is. He's like, you have the power yourself. You don't need a building of wood and stone to worship me. You have the power in yourself. And that was his big message. What he explained to me is this image of him being hung on the cross when people enter a church is blasphemy for an ascended master, for starters. Because when we think of the earlier era of Christ, Aramaic, he's got his hands up and right, he's powerful, he's light, he's not hanging down. When people walk into the church and that's the first thing they see, it lowers your vibrational frequency because now you're looking at an ascended master being tortured. So there goes the guilt, the shame, the blame, those three lovely low frequency emotions that keep people trapped. What if every single church, every single home that had one of those crosses was replaced with the version of Christ as an ascended master in the light, with the halos around him, with his hands palm up? How does that shift the energy of this planet by doing that one thing?
That's going to be a neat trick to try and convince the religious lot, but also to circle back to what we've all heard about the reptilians and so forth. Long story made short, it would seem that, speaking of vibrations rising, if we were able to do that, that would raise the love vibration to a point where, and correct me if I'm wrong, the not so friendly ET types like the Draco Reptilians and that whole scene would not be able to survive in that environment. Like, it would almost starve them, right?
Absolutely. We're robbing them of a fuel supply when we do that.
That's what we want to do.
Absolutely it is. It takes courage to do that, right? To stand up and say no more. These beings are nothing more than parasitic energies, but yet we give them so much power and so much of our fear. They're just parasites.
Is it as simple as saying only those of love and light can stay here, everyone else must leave immediately? Or does it take a little bit more than that?
It can work, and it depends on where you're at on this vibrational scale. And it's not a contest either. It may not work because sometimes we need more oomph, more power behind it. Maybe we need some professional help. But if you're looking for help, investigate your resources. Don't just blindly trust. They want us to believe that we need them and we don't, period. So yes, there's a way to do this. The process that I use is very different and it's rather effective. Knock on wood. I'm very blessed to be able to do the work I do to help people because it's life-changing. When you can remove the reptilians, when you can remove the grays, when you can remove them out of somebody's energy field, out of their family lines even, it shifts the dynamics of the family lines back through time, space, and dimension, and forward also. It's a heavy concept, I know, but it's a big deal.
It is a heavy concept, but we're hearing about that more and more. You have past life memories as well, and some go very far back to the ancient civilizations. What's the earliest memory that you have?
The earliest memory I have is in Lemuria. And so Lemuria is a heart-centered, love and light-centered civilization. It's around Mu, the Hawaiian Island area, but it expanded more than that. Everybody worked together People were more telepathic in nature. They were taller. They were actually a higher density vibrational body. So they didn't have these dense, heavy bodies that we have here today. And I remember that I was in charge of some outpost, and life is good. Life is amazing. We're learning. We're doing all the fun things, all the good things. And this attack from the reptilians came out of the blue. We did not know how to defend ourselves. It was out of our paradigm. We had no idea what was going on. I remember being in charge of a certain group, or whatever you want to call it, and getting people off the planet as fast as I could. And in that process, I got injured. And I did not want to go back up to I'm going to call it the mothership, the big ship that was collecting these souls to get them off the planet, because I kept wanting to help. And I got a huge shard of something right through my spleen energy. And to this day, my spleen is a weak point for me. But I remember what it felt like. And this was a past life recall event that was very spontaneous, because I was asking a question. What is my relationship with these reptilians? Where did it start? This is one of the starting points with them right there. So that's how I got started with that. And I could never go back to Hawaii. Every time I would see it, even as a kid, a map or whatever, I would get so sad. And I never knew why. And it wasn't until last year that I had the courage to go back there because of the sadness.
Now, where in the timeline does Lemuria basically sit in relation to Atlantis?
There's a couple of different theories. One is that they were completely separate time elements. Another one is that there's sort of an overlap. So Lemuria, heart-centered, etc., the Atlanteans were more technology-based. There is a group of the Atlanteans that were very much heavily into ego also. They self-destructed themselves, basically. So with the Atlanteans, they had too much technology, a group of them, and they didn't know how to use it wisely or properly. And I think we're mirroring that today with our technology. How do we use it wisely? You
don't have memories of being on or in Atlantis at one point? Or do you?
Don't, but I have, I'm going to call them records. You can call them Akashic records, etheric records of how certain things worked. I don't feel like I was on this planet during Atlantis, but I was involved in a different level, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, it does. Now, during your time in Lemuria, did you witness ET-type creatures that lived amongst you?
There were other ETs that would come to visit this planet as a vacation type of planet to gather information, etc. So there was a lot, I'm going to call it a multicultural type of atmosphere, but there was a benevolence about it. The beings that were coming they were there for the greater good also, until one day it wasn't.
You mentioned a mothership before. It's evident that there were ships thousands and thousands of years ago, right?
Definitely.
Okay. There's a lot of people that have memories of Atlantis. Lemuria, not so much, and it's because it was much older. Now, when you try to connect the dots between your experiences in Lemuria with other ETs, what's the connection? What's the link? Has that taught us anything or not necessarily?
Really good question. It should be teaching us something. We need to learn to remember our past so we can move forward into the future. These reptilians and other nefarious entities have destroyed other planets in other universes, other solar systems. This planet, by the way, I think is the most beautiful of all the planets. When you look at it compared to the other planets, ours is amazing. There's a lot of resources here too, which makes it more interesting. The Anunnaki and other nefarious ones would take gold off this planet like crazy because that's what they needed for their ships, for their technologies. So we have to understand that, first of all, we do live more than one life. Christ talks about life everlasting, not death everlasting. We've all been here many times.
Even though you don't hear that in church, obviously.
No, it's a control mechanism, right? You got one time to get it right, or you're going to burn in hell for eternal damnation.
Speaking of Christ, it's interesting because I've heard people talk about Christ consciousness even though they don't go to church, and they think there's a lot of disinformation or just information that was lost in translation in the Bible. When you look at your experience with the good and the not so good ETs, what does that tell you about disclosure? Are we going to see something soon? And how is that related to the urgency of raising our vibration?
Spirituality should never be a contest. And when we turn it into a contest, then we lose the whole purpose of spirituality. We have to accept where people are at on their timeline. If they're willing to accept help to grow, wonderful. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're being mind controlled. All these different things. But when it comes to Christ consciousness, getting this word out, elevating our frequencies, we have to turn into ourselves and ask, what rings true for me and why? We have to get out of the emotional state. When we're hearing all of these disclosures and this person said this and this person said that and everybody gets all emotional and riled up, that just fuels the dark side. What rings true for you and why? You got to answer the why. And it's not because it feels good or I just know. You got to do some deep digging within your soul.
Very interesting stuff. What else do we need to know, at least for today?
Bring in your angels, vet your angels. And the more we can work with our angels, the more we align with the higher realms, the more we have a deeper connection with our higher self even, which connects us back to Christ consciousness, God's source energy. Working with our angels, we've been programmed to believe that my problems aren't worthy of an angel's help or they're not big enough for an angel's help. Yeah, you are. The angels actually earn, I'm going to call them karma, brownie points for helping us. They cannot help us unless we ask for their help because they cannot mitigate our free will. So ask the angels for help.
Okay, so I think I've heard that before. Angels earn karma by helping us. Does that help them ascend up through the hierarchy, as it were?
Absolutely. If your angels are standing around twiddling their thumbs, waiting for the ask, you're not helping them. Ask for words of wisdom. I'm going into a tough meeting with my boss today. Help guide my words so I'm heard. My child is driving now. I'm asking the angels to be with my child while my child is driving a car. Use them all the time because it helps to connect you to the higher realms so easily. It's the easiest way to build your spiritual team.
I like that. By helping ourselves, we are actually helping the cause of the angelic army.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right, Laura, thanks so much for joining us today. Really very cool information. In the meantime, how can our listeners find you online?
You can go to my name, lauravantyne.com. That's my website, and you can use that on Instagram and any of the social medias also. So thank you.
You've been listening to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing. You can find more info on closertovenus.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.